We're on the Daf Yomi for Sotah Daf Tezvav, and we're going to record this Daf Yomi on Erev Pesach. This is the Daf Yomi for the 8th day of Pesach, a day it's called the Mashiach meal, the day where we anticipate the coming of the Mashiach. So the Daf Yomi tells us we're going to start 4 lines from the top, and it states in the Brisa states 4 lines from the top on 15a that once you bring the kometz offering, then the shiara nechon, once you bring the scoopful of the grain offering on the altar as an offering, that's called the kometz, then the shiarim, and the rest of the korban can be eaten. Minoan, how do we know this? That once the kometz is brought, then the rest of it can be eaten. So the Talmud tells us, because it's written, Viktira Kohen es Azkarasa. The Kohen brings the kometz, the Azkarasa, the offering, and then right afterwards it states, Vanoseres Menamen Chala Aaron Ulevanov, that the leftover of this offering is eaten by Aaron and his sons. So the Brisa then said Karava Kometz, that once it's permitted, the Kohanim, once the Kometz is offered, then the Kohanim could eat from the rest of the Mincha. This actually is a dispute as to when exactly the Kometz is going to be considered that it's offered. Marka de Islay or Marka de Islay, that there's 2 opinions. The Imar, we learned, Kometz me imasai matir shiarim ba'achila. Once the Kometz is offered, at what point can the rest of the mincha offering be eaten? Rabbi Chanina Amar Mishatishlet Bo Ha'or. Rabbi Chanina says from once the fire touches the kometz, then it's going to be considered like it's brought on the altar, and the Kohen is allowed to eat the rest of it. Rabbi Yochanan says Mishatitze Sa'or Berubo, that once the fire goes into the majority of the kometz, then you could eat the shirayim, and the Kohen is able to, then afterwards, the Kohanim, when they eat the grain offering, are able to put in it wine, oil, and honey. My time, what's the reason? Amar Kra, l'mashcha. It says in the verse, I gave to you this mishmer trumasi, l'mashcha, as for greatness, but l'mashcha can also mean oil. L'mashcha means l'dula, for greatness. From here we see Kedera Shamalachim Ochan. So you're supposed to eat the mincha the way that the kings eat it, and that is with greatness. It's only prohibited to prevent it from becoming chametz. Meaning to say, you could eat the grain offering however you want, but you're not allowed to let it become chametz. How do we know this? Because it says lo te'afeh chametz chalkam nasati osam meishai, that you're not allowed to let it become chametz. You have to give a portion of it for my fire offering. Even their part of it, lo te'afeh chametz. You're not allowed to let it become chametz. Then it says all the minchas, all the grain offerings require shemen and levana, oil and frankincense, except for the grain offering of the sotah. So the Gemara asks the question: do all of them require oil and frankincense? If there's a chatas offering, if there's a sin offering that was a mincha, that does not require oil and levona. So that's the chatas offering. That is, if somebody violates one of these mitzvot, that if you do it intentionally, you're chayav kares, then in general you have to bring a chatas. However, there are a number of chatas that if you do them accidentally, you have an olav yored. An olav yored is a variable offering depending upon how much money you have. So those are the shvuas ha'edus, the tumas mikdash u'ketashav, and the shvuas pitoy. There you could bring, these are what's called, you could do a chatas of an olav yored. And so therefore you're able to bring whatever you could afford. Sometimes, and so a person who's wealthy brings an animal, and someone who can't afford that bring 2 birds. And then if they're dam shabadalas, if they're the most poor, they bring the grain offering. And so it says such an offering, since it's a grain offering, lo yasim aleh shemen or levona, you're not allowed to put oil or frankincense on such an offering. So we see from here there's another offering that you don't put on oil. And the Gemara says halchi kamar. So this is what we mean. Kol menachos do not shemen levona ubos menachitin ubos soes So we say, so all of the grain offerings require oil and frankincense, and they come from the wheat, and they are brought with flour. But minchas omer, but the barley offering, and even though it comes from the barley offering, tuna shemen ulavona, that requires oil and frankincense, uva geras, and it comes from the fine flour, the fine barley. And so, however, however, this mincha sotah, this carbon mincha of the sotah woman, zo eina tuna shemen ulavona, it does not require oil or frankincense. It doesn't get oil and frankincense. And furthermore, it comes from flour, from barley, and from the coarse flour. So we see that the sotah woman's grain offering has three defects. One is that it has no oil, no frankincense, comes from barley, and the flour it's used is the coarse flour, not the fine flour. Tanya Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Shimon says really the grain offering of the sinner should require oil and frankincense, because we don't want the sinner to benefit from the fact that he sinned, and so therefore he saves money by not having to bring the oil and the frankincense. Why does he not require oil and frankincense? We don't want his sacrifice to be especially beautiful. And really, we're going to say that the chata of the chelev should require nisachim as well, that the sin offering of the a regular sin offering should also require the nisachim, the libations that accompany the regular karbanos, i.e. flour, oil, and wine. But we don't want the sinner to benefit that he doesn't have to pay for the libations as well. And why do we not require these libations? We don't want his carbon to be especially beautiful. But the chatas of the mitzora of the leper, even though he's a sin offering and requires atonement, v'hashamo, and the guilt offering, tuna nisachim, they require the libations. So the mitzora so the mitzora, his chatas and asham do require nesachim because they don't come for a sin. So the Gemara says this is really the case that the karbanos of the leper are not brought on account of a sin. That for 7 reasons the afflictions come. That the person gets saras for one of 7 reasons, and the Gemara in Erechin 16a lists this. The most famous is lashon hara, that if you gossip you get saras, but it's also for murder, for shvua shav, for gilui arayos, for arrogance, for theft, for being stingy. So we see from here that they do come from a sin. So why do they bring oil and so why do they have nesachim along with it? The Gemara says, no, once he gets the tzaras, he already gets the atonement as a result of it. Kimaisi carbon. So what's the only reason why he's bringing the carbon? Is to that's to allow him to eat the kachim, and it's not to get rid of his sin. Now, if that's the case, chatas nazir to una nesachim. The chatas of the nazir should require nesachim because that's also not coming for a sin. So the Gemara says, no, this is the author of this. Remember, Rabbi Shimon, Savalak Rabbi Elazar, Hakapar, the Amar, Nazir Namichotehu. So Rabbi Shimon holds like Rabbi Elazar Hakapar, who says that the Nazir is also a sinner. We saw this several times in the Masechas Nazir and also in Nedarim, that the Nazir is a sinner, and that's why he doesn't bring the Nisachim. Rabbi Gamliel says, just like her actions are the actions of an animal, so too her carbon that she brought is the food of an animal, and therefore, for this reason, she brings a barley offering. Tanya, Amalei Rabbi Gamliel Chachamim. Rabbi Gamliel says to the Chachamim Sofrim, he calls the Chachamim Sofrim, scribes. And really, this is probably just a reference to Rabbi Meir, because Rabbi Meir, we know from the Gemara in Gittin, Samach Zayin Amud Aleph, was a sofer. He was a chacham and a sofer. That we know there that Rabbi Meir said to Rabbi Shmuel, Lav Larami, I am a scribe. So he says, he says, give me space, and I'll tell you the reason why the mincha of the sotah is different from all the other minachos, and that's why it's brought from the barley. I'm going to teach it to you like a button. That's a type of jewelry. The Shamel Rabbi Meir, because they have a position for Rabbi Meir. The Ka'amar, Rabbi Meir taught, and they owe him. She fed him the delights of the world. Therefore, her sacrifice is machal be'ema. So because I heard the Rameir said, what's the reason why she serves barley? Because she fed him. Her offering is barley because she fed him the delights of the world, and because she fed him the delights of the world, therefore her offering comes from the dirt of the world, the food of the animals, the barley. So Rabbi Gamliel responded, Amrlei Hatena Chashira. That would be if she was wealthy, that she fed him the delights of the world. But if she's poor, what are you going to say? If she's poor, how would you really answer this question? How would you explain why she does the barley offering? She didn't feed him the delights of the world. Ella, just like her action is the action of the animals, so to her food is the food of the animals, and that's why she brings the ma'achol behema of the barley offering. So hayamevi pilei shalcheres, she brings the Kohen brings the pilei shalcheres. She brings her to drink in a cup of water that was made from the cheapest material, the pottery. And he places into it half a lug of water from the kior, from the basin in the azar, which contained the water. And then it states, Rabbi Yehuda Omer Revius. Rabbi Yehuda says, no, he doesn't put in a half a lug, he puts in a Revius. Kashem Shemima'et Biksav. And just like Rabbi Yehuda says that you write less, we're going to see this dispute later on in our Gemara on Daf Yud Zayin. So too, Kach Memait B'mayim. Rabbi Yehuda says just like you write less, you don't write the full passage that the Chum say. So too, he says you pour less water in. Nichnas La'echol, then the Kohen comes into the sanctuary itself. Very, very rare for the Kohen to come into the actual sanctuary. We know the Kohen Gadol does it and Ketores, but you're only allowed to do the Ketores once in your life. It doesn't tell us how the Kohen who had this job to go into the sanctuary was selected. We haven't learned that yet. Upanali Amino, he turns to his right, to Makom HaYesham, and there was a place there, Amal Amma, and there was a place there. There was one Amma by one Amma. Amma is approximately 18 to 24 inches. V'tava shel shayish, and there was a marble piece. V'tabas ha'isa kavulah, and there was a ring in it. Kishum magbia v'notel afar mitachtea. When he would lift up the tablet, he would take earth from underneath it, from the Mishkan, v'nosan, and he would put it in the utensil, kadesha yira'eh. He would put in the pottery utensil enough earth so that it could be seen. Al hamayim, on the water, as it states, from the earth that was on the floor of the Mishkan, you should take some and put it on the water. And from the fact that it doesn't say into the water, but on the water, this implies that the earth will not fully enter in and be absorbed, but it'll be recognizable. Tanya, we learned Piyale Shalcharis Chadasha. This is a cup of a new pottery. That's the position of Rabbi Shmuel. My time at Rabbi Shmuel. What's the reasoning for Rabbi Shmuel? Gomer kli kli mi mitzora. He learns out the utensil by comparing it to a mitzora. Malal, and just like a mitzora, you need a kli chadasha. You need to take a new utensil by the mitzora, where it states that you slaughter the bird and into the pottery utensil, and just like there, it's a new utensil. Afkan charas chadasha. Also here, it's a new utensil. V'tanan minalan by mitzora. How do we know that the utensil needs to be a new utensil? D'chsev v'shachatas tipor achas al kli charas al mayim chayim, and that you need to slaughter the bird and place into the kli charas on mayim chayim. Mayim chayim shalonas taban malacha. Just like the mayim chayim, there was no work done with that. Just like mayim chayim, there was never any work done with it. It's fresh and new, and that's what the bird is slaughtered into. Afkli, also this utensil for the mitzora has to be shalonas tabel malacha, that there was never any work done for it. So if that's the case, just like we're saying that just by a mitzora you have a new utensil, so too by a sotah you have a new utensil. Well, if that's the case, just like by a mitzora it has to be done in mayim chayim with spring water, so too by the sotah it should have to be spring water. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Yishmael hachinami, according to Rabbi Yishmael, who says that you need to be mayim chayim spring water for the sotah. Yeah, I would say that. I'm Rabbi Yochanan mekior. Rabbi Shmuel Omer Meimayana, and Rabbi Yochanan says it's from the basin, whereas Rabbi Shmuel says no, it has to be from the spring water. Chachamim Omer Mishar Meimosein. So the Chachamim say that Rabbi Yochanan says that the water of the basin needs to be, according to Rabbi Yishmael, needs to be spring water, whereas the Chachamim say it can come from any water. And so therefore, Rabbi Shmuel requires it from the spring water. So he would say also this water needs to be spring water. But you could challenge him. Ton Eitz Eretz Ve'ezov U'Shni Salas. Why would you say that you could learn out the Gzera Shava from Mitzorah to a Sotah? Mitzorah is something totally different. It has a hyssop, it has cedar wood, it's crimson thread. So, but the Sotah doesn't have that. Amar Rabba, Amar Krab, Kli Cheres. It says by the Sotah needs to be in Kli Cheres, which is the utensil that you already used by the Mitzorah. Amarava, Elashlonis Achmu Panav. So Rava says, Lo Shanu, when do we say that you could use an old utensil? According to the Rabbanan, who say that you could use an old utensil to water the Sotah, that's only if it was not darkened. Avon Nisachmu Panav, but if the pottery utensil was darkened, psuin, from the fire, then it's disqualified. My time, we're going to compare it to the water. Ma mayim shlonishtanu, just like the water whose appearance is not changed, and you need to be visible, and it can't be the water changed appearance from the earth. Also, the utensil that its appearance is not changed. By Rava, so Rava asked the question. So Rava asked the question. Let's say the pottery utensil had become darkened by the fire, but then you put it back in the furnace, and it becomes okay. What's going to be the halacha there? Mao, what do we say there? Mi amrinan kiven the itchu. Do we say since it became disqualified at any point, it's still disqualified? Odoma kiven the hadar. Maybe when you put it back in the kiln, it's a new utensil, and then it's okay. Tashma Rabbi Elazar Omer eitz erev heizov u'shni solas shev shilba and kupaso achorav psuon. So we say. So Rabbi Elazar said, let's say that the items you need for the Mitzorah, let's say you take the cedar wood, the hyssop, and the crimson thread, and you need them for the Mitzorah, that you made for them like a basket and you put them behind them, they're disqualified because we're going to say since they changed their form. But then afterwards, as soon as you undo it from its like basket form, it's okay. And nevertheless, we're still going to say it's disqualified. So we see even though you remake it, it's still disqualified. Gemara says no. Awesome. The ikufi kaufe there it became peeled from the burden, and that you can't bring back. If once it's peeled off, you can't bring it back. So, but in general, if you put it in the kiln, it would be okay. So that's why also someone to say that if you have pottery utensil and you put it back in the fire, that's why it's going to be okay because it's a totally new utensil. That the Kohen enters into the sanctuary, turns to his right. My time, a remark called anytime you have a choice, you make a right or left, you make a right. Anytime you go to the right. Makom hayisham amal ama, they had a space there that was one amma by one amma. That so it says in the Torah that you could take any earth. I might think you can take the earth from outside and bring it in. Talmud Omar, Bekarka Mishkan. It has to come from the earth of the floor of the Mishkan specifically. Bekarka Mishkan Yachol Yachbor Bekardomis. I might think you could dig it up with an axe. Talmud Omar Asher Yiyeh. Okay, tzad yesham avei ein sham tein sham. If there's earth there already, then bring it for the Sotah. If there isn't, then you have to give the water, bring it from there from the outside, and then you take it and put it in the water. So we're going to stop here. This is our stopping for today. Wish everybody a good Yom Tif. We'll stop here and stop the recording. A beautiful